Alaska, Grim After Dark, starring John and Danny.
Guys, the highest budget episode of Grim After Dark ever arrives on the scene to address the controversy we stirred up last week. We're going to talk about some pros and cons of streaming a large event. And we're going to dish out some judgment tokens, hopefully. I'm a hydrocephalic version of Quentin Tarantino, and even though we are a group of elitist neckbeards, it's still going to get pretty grim after dark. Now, my co-host today needs some organization. He's a classic high hairline Harry, if you will. This is Danny McDevitt. Yeah,
oh
look
my
at
gosh,
speedy you are
was that
now,
a
Danny.
speed run? Unbelievable. The amount of yeah, it's crazy how Val was able to tweak that slightly so that it wasn't a ponderously slow descent from the ceiling.
I mean, technically every week we do this show, it's a ponderously slow descent. But last week we shared our hatred of loud whying and our loves of insane gambling. And one of our listeners on Twitter did ask us this, asking, is there a Patreon tier to make Danny wag at LVO? So Danny, I do have to ask, is there actual Patreon tiers for the FLGN Patreon?
There's not a tier for that, thank Christ. Because if somebody makes me pronounce the hard G in that, like you just did, and do it in the first place, like I'm gonna have an aneurysm, I swear to God.
What tier would it take for you to wag at your loudest?
John, I don't know. I don't want to put a price on it. Some things you can't. They're just
That's fair.
Yeah.
Okay, I want you to look directly into your camera. Right here. Convince people not to subscribe to the FLGM Patreon and make you wag.
John, my weakness, you're going to make me decline money? Are you serious?
What's your price, Shill?
No, you guys should donate. Yeah, make me yell something or embarrass myself in public. It won't happen. I mean, it will happen. It'll totally happen. I'll have to do it.
Hey, at LVO, I will embarrass myself in public just by trying to play this game that we all love. That's not all, though, Danny, because tell us who's joining us today.
John, we've really rolled out the red carpet tonight for a guest that you can't find anywhere and is seldom seen on the show. Tonight, we're pleased to welcome the grandpappy of the FLGN, Val Heffelfinger. Val, welcome to Grim After Dark yet again. I guess I don't have to welcome you to your own house.
Well, I don't know if it's my house. I mean, I'm not even in my house right now. But I do appreciate the tepid introduction. That's very kind of you to sort of be interested in having me.
The co-host to truly reflect my laziness. But amazing. Val, first off, I want to be the first to apologize to you. Last week, Danny and I stirred up a lot of controversy. We mentioned another podcast in a negative manner. We may have added some personal attacks in there. And, well, I know you didn't watch the show, because who does? But here's a picture I got up next on the slideshow of what we did.
Are you sure? I mean, like, I can press a button. This one?
Yeah, that one right there. We made fun of Seth again.
Right.
We called him a meta we called him a meta chaser.
Yeah.
Danny, is there anything you want to say to that?
I mean, normally if I felt like I was in the wrong, I would apologize. But I'm not, so I won't.
Okay.
Fair. Yeah.
Okay.
I just want to personally add that this was all really funny to me, making fun of Seth and calling him a meta chaser.
Yeah.
Up until last week's episode of Signals from the Frontline.
Right.
Where he told people to hug me in public bathrooms, which combines... Sorry, Val, please continue.
Well, no, I just don't think that necessarily requires much encouragement. And people are going to hug you in public bathrooms. That is before Warhammer, after Warhammer, and during Warhammer. John's looking for love at the urinal.
It does
His favorite position. is little spoon urinal hug. That is his favorite. So just if you can manage that, you're going to make him feel really comfortable.
Oh yeah,
really comfortable.
It does combine my two least favorite things, which is public bathrooms and being touched. So please, no.
Yes.
And then we have to ask.
That's why, folks. Although it may sound good, don't lose your virginity in a public bathroom. It'll set you up for years of weird feelings.
Yeah. It's a hate relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Are we forgiven for stirring up this controversy?
Well, we're a show that likes to punch down, and it seems like you guys nailed it. Last week, and I actually did listen to the show up until that point, and at which point my Canadianness would not allow me to continue. So I had to abort before things got pretty hot and heavy. That being said, I mean, I did kind of incite this focus on a particular YouTube video by watching that one and perhaps falling asleep at some point during it. So I, maybe set you guys up with a tonality that was not conducive to being upright, pillars of the community that I know both of you wish to be. I mean, your stature alone suggests that you could be pillars of something. So, live and learn. I mean, this is for some reason a satirical comedy show about Warhammer 40,000 and Tournament Warhammer 40,000. One of the widest demographics I think that exists
absolutely
on the internet.
Yeah,
is we took a narrow demographic.
Yeah,
get rid of most of that. Let's narrow that down even more.
Yeah. How do we specialize further? I think it's really important that we try and really hone our niche.
Yeah, no, and that's important
too. I think it's regardless of what happens, it's important that we realize that Seth is a good guy. He's not a power gaming meta chaser like we set him up to be last week. And this slide shows that he definitely didn't list his Votann Codex for sale right after the nerfs last week. Sorry, I meant to say he did actually list his Votann Codex for sale post-nerf last week. But not before he did. His ancestor is proud, as we can see in this slide here, as he left a little grudge token at Games Workshop headquarters.
Now I get that slide. I'm like, what is the slide? Now I get it. It was
Jokes.
a good bit.
So
for the podcast listeners, there's a photo of Warhammer World with a grudge token hastily photoshopped in front of it. There's now one grudged counter on Games Workshop.
That's important to remember. That's not as good as it would have been a week ago, but it's still funny.
I think Seth left the grudge token in our hotel room bathroom when we were at LVO. That's son
fair.
of a bitch.
He calls it a hug, but really it's a grudge token. That's what he gives them.
Right.
Sorry.
Danny, Val, we all have amazing partners who support our wargaming hobby fun. But I feel we know not to push our limits, unlike this guy in this image here, who, when his fiance said that they could do anything they wanted for their anniversary, he took her to a local Games Workshop store. What I can only describe is playing on the sparsest tables this side of a game store's first RTT.
Now we are assuming we are. I mean, we do see here a photo of a besmirched girlfriend, fiance at a Games Workshop with one of those sideways thumbs up and just a real toothless smile, a grimace, if you will. And the person behind may or may not be the betrothed. I don't know. I mean,
I really hope that
the betrothed is in fact the person taking the photo, and that the person in the background there was, well, perhaps they're a blogger. You never know.
They're playing Warhammer. They have a blog or a podcast. Everyone,
almost certainly.
But if this photo was taken by the fiance, I do hope that he was like, "Hey, let me take a picture of you when you're at your absolute saddest at stage."
But really compare and contrast. Look at him. I mean, he is happier than all get out. Like, he's moving.
I might be wrong, but I think that's a game of Titanicus going on.
That is a game of Titanicus going on.
Yep. Not even 40K, guys.
Yeah. No, I will say the scenery isn't necessarily Titanicus scenery, so bad job, GW, of ruining this people's anniversary. Guys, what's the closest you've both come to making a mistake of this magnitude? Because this is a mistake.
Relationship-wise?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the closest thing I have to this is probably just a conversation I had, and I think I must have told the story before, but it went something along the lines of discussing Warhammer, to which my wife said, "I would rather die than play Warhammer," and I said, "But like you'd rather not live anymore? Like you'd rather that your existence came to a close than play a game for 3 hours?" And she doubled down. She said, "Absolutely yes." So I know not to do this. I know not to do this because it threatens the very not just the marriage, but the continued existence of my wife.
That's fair. That's fair. That's a lot of pressure to put on you there. Danny, what's the most understanding your wife's ever been about your hobbying?
When I asked her to play on a tournament that was on her birthday, probably.
Nice.
And she let me go.
There's a there's a Warhammer Fantasy. There's a Warhammer Fantasy event happening at Du Bois GT, which I think is November 20th or so. Our anniversary is the 16th, and I haven't outright said, "Hey, thinking about maybe hitting up this Warhammer Fantasy GT in Rochester." I like to frame it usually like now that I do streaming events all the time and I'm like traveling. Usually they're in like a nice place, so I usually try and frame it as like, "Hey, you want to come to?" In this case, checks notes, Rochester, New York. But sometimes it's a nice place.
That's
a pitch. Is your wife just now instantly suspicious anytime you suggest a trip anywhere in the world?
Yes, especially like second-tier cities in the United States. Maybe even tertiary tier.
Guys, what's the biggest thing you've asked of your partner to support your wargaming habits?
Oh.
Man.
Well, I was on the road like 10 weeks last year. That was pretty big.
That's a lot.
That's fair. It's fair. Damn. Chat coming in letting us know that was a really sick Rochester burn, saying it's a tertiary city of the United States.
Rochester. I'm wearing a Bills hat. I got the upstate. New York, Western New York street cred going on here. We're fine.
Right, you gotta I gotta go to that Warhammer Fantasy tournament because I was wrapping their hat on the show.
That's right.
You have to now. Next question here. Did she start this next slide here, which is a change.org petition, which we know are always super successful. But after this fateful night, did she start a change.org petition for GW to put lead in their paints to get rid of brush lickers?
Now, the brush licking, I wasn't a brush licker until I discovered the term brush licking, and that kind of normalized the behavior for me. So now I will reshape the point of my paintbrush on occasion, but before I would never have even thought of it.
Yeah. Danny, are you a brush licker?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Would you guys consider brush licking like your worst hobby habit? Or is there other things you do that you're like, no, no one can know of this? And then can you tell people about it?
Oh, yeah. This is way worse.
Dude, I'm not falling into your false choice dichotomy. Get out of here with that.
I mean, running a 3D print farm in a room with no windows in the middle of the winter, and just really hoping that the whole like irritant label that it's got is true. That was probably the dumbest. Also, just every time I choose not to use a mask while airbrushing, and then get the black boogers. Black boogers are bad. So yeah, basically a lot of respiratory risks taken on.
True.
By yours truly in the hobby. I don't recommend either of those things. It's dumb.
There's someone in chat here I'm very concerned about who says, anyone else start playing Warhammer to understand this show? One, don't do that. It's not going to help.
Yeah. God, not worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, not worth it. Just choose to not watch like everyone else. What is a change.org petition that you guys would want to start to improve this hobby of ours?
Oh.
Oh, clearly that Games Workshop should stop changing their game so much.
Oh no!
Did I just blow the lead? We're not talking about any meat and bones. We're really beating around the old bush on this one. But yeah, I don't know, man. Don't yell "wah" at tournaments. I think that should be
that's
one.
A great one.
Also, Danny, the call out of the hard G as well is just the insult to injury. I think on someone yelling "wah" is that when in the English language is there a GH that is pronounced?
It drives me insane. Like there are so many people that mispronounce it, and like I don't understand why.
GH is a glottal sound. It adds a it's not a g sound, you know?
Right.
Come on, people.
We spell garden with a GH.
Excuse me?
What?
So I live for the half second of confusion that I can put over people's faces when I say.
That's what John lives for, guys.
All right. Moving along here.
Moving along, guys. Usually I add things I find funny, or I can make a joke about, or I find bizarre. But this next one here, this one just confuses me. It says, "Funny how GW's heresy lore turned to reality. How half their beloved and loyal fans turned traitors and started 3D printings. We are officially all heretics, guys. Death to the false emperor." Guys, and I do mean this genuinely.
Wow.
What the fuck does that mean?
It's pretty simple, John. We're dealing with an idiot here. And this person has somehow equated their lawless behavior with turning traitor, which, okay, whatever. You're just, Anyway, you're allowed to 3D print whatever you want. Who cares? Like, what are you bragging about it now?
Yes, I mean, people are bragging about it, especially in places like the forum titled 40,000 Reasons to 3D Print, which that is a very specific 3D. I just have like 3D printing for Warhammer or Warhammer Fantasy. Like that is an even deeper subgenre. There's also the fascist-free Warhammer 3D printing forum I'm a part of, which leads me to wonder, why do we need one that's explicitly fascist-free? So maybe there is something here. In this idea
the one
of
that is fascist full, like separate.
It's only Deathcore of Krieg STLs.
Yeah, that's right.
Perfect.
Yeah. First of all, I mean, we don't need to call this man an idiot. I think he's just having a little bit of fun. I think he's just having a little bit of fun, and I don't think 3D printing necessarily equates to swearing allegiance to some sort of dark god and then, launching a 20,000-year war against your corpse dad. I think is a little bit different. The order of magnitude there, a little bit different. And perhaps this guy just needs to, raise his game as far as what heretical thought is all about.
I view it, and someone with lots of experience of this, as a joke that sounded really funny in someone's head that just didn't land right. But
I bet you there's at least 100 responses to this, because that's the way those places go.
Oh yeah,
fair. But Danny, why are people who 3D print really self-righteous?
Oh well, I mean, because they have a giant chip on their shoulder because they, I don't know, either don't want to or can't afford to buy Games Workshop models directly. So they've definitely got something to prove. So I don't know, they think that like, oh yeah, I'm getting a one up on this guy. Like it's all a bunch of self-righteous garbage.
That's fair.
I mean that sword does swing, in both directions though. I mean, sure. the hobby purists, the official or not, because I mean this argument even happens between third party miniatures, proxies and counts as well as 3D printing. It's existed forever in the hobby. I mean, where would the guy with the baby-faced Chaos Dread Knight be, without some degree of righteousness to react against? I mean, it wouldn't be any fun making one of the most god-awful conversions that you could possibly make.
I mean, I imagine, Val, that he's probably cutting up children's dolls somewhere.
Right.
Like in a basement.
Right. And that's what better outlet for someone who enjoys chopping and dismembering dolls of children than a tabletop war game.
True,
I mean, that is taking what is certainly a red flag and refocusing it into something that's certainly a red flag.
Yeah. Val, you've kind of said there's not much meat to the bones so far, and it's all very surface level stuff. So let me ask you specifically.
Well, there's some big topics floating out there, bud.
There is. Okay, then on the topic of 3D printing, Marx stated that before a man can do anything else, he must first produce the means of their subsistence. So how do you feel the principles of Marxism apply to the modern 3D printing enthusiast?
Actually, that is fascinating because I did have a conversation with my dad recently about seizing the said means of production and the impact that 3D printing has on it. Because I think if there's anything that 3D printing does, is that it distributes the production chain. So it may not be a threat necessarily to producers of things in the sense of people who create stuff that is then produced, but it does in certain segments reduce the need for centralized production and factories and so forth. So in fact, it is quite a freeing technology if the creators out there who are bringing their ideas to that market are open to the concept of no longer having control over the means or factors of production.
Danny, you rolled your eyes back so much, I thought you were doing your Undertaker impression. Your thoughts?
No, I have no thoughts. I have zero thoughts. Yeah.
Chat, by the way, going insane at the concept that Val has eyes, which I think just fantastic. The important thing to take away from what Val said about the decentralization of availability of product is that he has eyes. It is important, though, to remember the benefits of 3D printing. As without the technology of commercial quality home 3D printing, we would never be able to print such fine items like these. This ashtray of a naked woman you apparently extinguish your cigarettes on, which is obviously an incredibly healthy way to live your life. Or Thanos in a thong sticking his ass up into the air, presumably for a game of Marvel Crisis Protocol. Which does remind me, coming this week, guys, or maybe early next week, Frontline Gaming is releasing their first full-color Marvel Crisis Protocol terrain set. And that's going to be available at frontlinegaming.org to really immerse yourself in that Marvel Crisis Protocol experience. Val, you got a thought on that?
Well, I think sexy Thanos has a place in this world. I do enjoy that. It's not just sexy fill in the blank She-Hulk attorney at law, for example. The fanfic turned actual show that I'm sure Danny watches every episode of.
Not seen one.
Class on it.
But no, I mean, like that's fine. I mean, the ashtray one that sucks and is trigger warning worthy, and but that is the internet. I mean, the internet and 3D printers in general allow us to literally create in reality stuff that otherwise was contained by the ethereal nature of the internet. So an ashtray with a naked girl in it. Well, that's something that I'm sure has been floating around in concept for some time. And yes, one of the downsides of having 3D printing technology is now, well, that can be made by people around. But you can also make guns. So, there's a sliding scale here.
That's true. And real Thanos snapped his fingers to wipe out half the universe. Sexy Thanos. Dude. Clap those cheeks.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say, John. You really nailed it.
I was just going to go snap the thong, but, both those work.
Just twerking to normality. Back to normality, though, as we head to the Crusade and 30K, as the Heresy group, Crusade and Heresy, see that the players made Argotal take a risk by charging 2 giant knights. This risk did not pay off. Guys, what's the biggest risky play you've ever tried that actually worked?
It worked?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I got it. No brainer.
Yeah. Yeah.
For me, it was FLG. That worked was the qualifier. It would have been the major that I won by default against Adam Abramowitz. I had a very large gargantuan Squiggoth named Peaches, and I turn one charge. Adams hastily lined up Gilliman, and the Squiggoth ate Gilliman and killed him. It was fantastic, and should never have worked, and it was wonderful. It was like one of the only times where I did something like that, and everything didn't go terribly wrong immediately.
Amazing. Danny, what about you? What's a big risk you've taken that's paid off?
Oh, yeah. Probably asking my wife to marry me.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, that's fair. That's fair. Because, the risk with that is because you're like, no.
Yeah, the risk to that was we were on vacation in Hawaii. So, like it would be a real uncomfortable rest of the vacation if she said no. So, because of the implication, obviously, she said yes.
You were on a boat? Amazing. What about the riskiest plays that you guys have done that you tried that failed?
Oh yeah, that would have been later on. LVO, one of the last competitive LVOs I ever had. I was second for the Orc faction. I played someone who I immediately dismissed as a chump. I've told the story many times. That chump turned out to be the best Tyranids player in North America. Who was using Tyranid warriors. And I charged with every unit I had, which I think there were 5 or 6 of them, and failed every single charge, leaving my entire army out in the open. And it was then picked up in the following turn. That was that.
Wonderful. Danny, I know you never fail at tactical decisions.
Oh, no, I did. I chose to bring a monolith to the last LVO as part of my competitive army.
You did do that. I remember that because after every round you were like, why did I bring a monolith? Apart from the last round where you're like, guys, the monolith was awesome.
Yep, but it was that time. Yep, I went 3-3. It wasn't even my worst LVO, but in my heart, it was my worst LVO.
Because you would have gone positive if you just didn't take
probably, yeah.
Guys, Golden Demon happened in the UK this weekend with the best painters in the world coming together to show off just a soul-crushing amount of skill. With former Games Workshop painter Darren Latham showing off his model before the competition that we can see here. Danny, thoughts on this model?
I don't get it.
That was the tweet he posted.
Yeah.
Showing that was his model.
I think he needs to blend a little bit more. It seems like the colors are a little chunky.
It's fair. Not a lot of delineation between the two different colors there. Val, what are some of the more impressive painting techniques on show on this model here?
Well, just the abstract quality of it. I mean, often, especially in the Games Workshop school of thought, we go for a kind of realism, a heroic realism, if you will. Whereas this is a much more abstracted approach to painting and a refreshing, I think, a breath of fresh air as far as miniature painting is concerned. Love to see people changing up or perverting or subverting, the genre.
Yeah,
it's really cool to see someone execute slap chop so perfectly like this. I'm just kidding. For sure. Slap chop is much better than this.
Yes. The real winner of the event and the incredibly prestigious Slayer sword was this gentleman here, Chris Clayton, who looks incredibly dapper, like a Portland Santa. And he won with this beautiful Thanos model. No, for real. He won with this guy here.
Wow.
This amazing Mega Gargant. Danny, using the words that only you can do, talk to the podcast listener. What are we seeing?
Oh, all right. So you've got the shipwrecker Mega Gargant here. He's fighting a Charybdis. Now he's pulled the Charybdis out of the water by its neck and has ripped off one of its heads, but it's still fighting. And it's kind of wrapped around his leg and also biting his arm. It's such a cool model. And in addition to that, he's pulling it out of the water, and there's like an inch or two maybe of clear resin poured with wave effects and everything else going down. It's just a gorgeously painted model and diorama. Just beautiful.
Yeah.
And I have not seen Citadel water effects in the store before.
They do have it up on Warhammer Community. Can you imagine the stress of that resin pour, where you have this beautifully finished painted model and you're pouring the resin in and hoping it doesn't bubble wrong.
Oh my god, yeah, dude.
Maybe
Val,
maybe he had actually only painted up to the guy's shin at that point.
No, you can see it underwater.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Is that he painted up to the shin and was like, okay, we're going to do the resin pour now. If it goes well, then he painted the rest of the guy.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah. What you
Definitely
don't
not.
see
He's
is
just
behind him,
skilled.
there's a pile of just abandoned mega carcans.
Now, one thing I want to just say here is now Danny identified that creature as a Charybdis.
Yeah.
Is that not a Hydra?
Well, the Hydra kit from Warhammer Fantasy makes 2 different models. It makes the War Hydra and the Charybdis.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
The more
Place
you know.
putted.
Val,
Hey,
does
boy,
seeing this
Dark
level of
Elves is my
quality-
faction, man.
Of course it
does
is.
seeing this level of quality inspire you to paint more? Or does it demotivate you incredibly, the level of skill that's on display?
Neither. I appreciate that like Golden Demon winning or even just aspirant entries on a level that I don't necessarily need to wish something that I could do or would put the amount of effort in. We're looking at thousands of hours of work there. I mean, that person's, that person's hobby is painting to that standard and honing the skills required to be able to do that. And there's literally nothing in my life that I would spend that much effort on. And that does not make me jealous, nor does that make me feel like I will never achieve that. The reality is I will never achieve that. So I'm fine with it. And I can appreciate it for how awesome it looks. And man, we all grew up flipping through White Dwarves on the toilet, looking at the old Golden Demon entries. They're a lot better now. Like that's something that I got to say is like, I don't know what painting techniques and technology entered into things since, we were kids in the 90s, but like, man, I guess it's airbrush. I don't know. Like the amount of, almost photorealism that you see in some of these competition miniatures is just it's just insane. It's amazing.
I think the paints are honed more. I think that there's better brush, like people are using brushes that they weren't using before. Airbrushes, of course.
Yeah.
I think there's some technology gain here as well. With some of the washes and things like that they've been able to utilize, and techniques for painting 3-dimensional stuff, which really, like, you don't really think of that as a skill or an art form really in any other hobby at all. Like even like sculptures, you don't see them usually painted.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps the scale modelers have come around to these more well, I don't know, just the diorama aspect to all of this.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely gorgeous. So I love looking at all of them.
It's
I think they're amazing.
Yeah.
Darren Latham, though, not one to let things go, as we can see in this next slide, as he deposited another grudge token as he was leaving, putting GW's total up to 2 tokens.
2 tokens.
Almost in the danger zone.
I blessed a hit, man. That's rough.
Man, it's terrible. Putting them in extreme danger. Guys, Cameo. It's a thing. I don't know if you are both a member of the Comp 40K group. If I do know you're a member, and Val, I know you're an admin. But this showed up on the Comp 40K group this week, and I really poorly cropped it to share with you guys.
So we're playing it with sound now?
We're playing the thing now.
Morgan, Ben, Scott, and Robin, you crazy, sexy bastards. Good luck becoming the top Warhammer players in the world. I hear Nerd Bar has GT on October 15th and 16th. I will send a personal congratulations to the winner of your GT. So, sign up today. Here's to Hot Dice.
Amazing.
Hot dice and hot dudes.
Wow.
This one's going out to
Ben, Scott, and Robin. I told you I cropped it awfully.
Morgan.
Ben, Scott, and Robin used adult film actress Katie Morgan, not Stifler's mom, Nidho66, to promote their GT at the Nerd Bar on October 15th and 16th, with the winner of the event getting a personal message from Katie Morgan herself. Guys,
message, not massage.
Yeah, not massage. Message.
Don't be fooled by this man's slow drawl. It's just a message, southernness, not a message.
Where does this rank in price support for you? A video message from an adult film actress?
I mean, definitely is targeting an audience there. I mean, you're really pegging your crowd to a certain genre of tournament goers. Now, I've yet to Google this young lady to discover exactly what her body of work is, but I'm sure she's a talented and accomplished actress, and I would be honored to receive a cameo of any kind from her.
Yeah, it's at this point, by the way, we realize that Val's wife watches the show. But
No, not the case. Although I will say that in the early development of this show, John had perhaps what I thought was one of the best ideas for content that I have to share right now. I think it's appropriate because it's no longer possible. Because the late, great Gilbert Gottfried, of course, passed away recently. But the concept was, because he was on Cameo, was to have him read the first page of the Horse Heresy. Which would have been perhaps, I mean, that would have been network making. But like all good ideas, it went on the whiteboard. $600. And basically that meant that Gilbert Gottfried had to die.
Anything on that whiteboard is going to die.
What is the whiteboard death note? Like,
yeah,
just somewhere in like his family's living room, he just erased from the photograph. He just
can't find him.
Blended into the back.
Dead.
Iago's parrot is voiced by someone else now. It's very strange.
Would you be more likely to go to that GT after that video, Danny?
I would be more likely to go to the GT after that video. I would treasure any kind of cameo that I received personally from anyone.
It's a really special thing for someone to do for someone else, no matter how badly they screw up the message you ask them to say.
That's right. It's very intimate.
But before we move on, for no other reason, is I didn't pay for that. I won it playing Warhammer. A good reason to tell your wife you're chatting with video chatting with an adult film star.
She just seems like a nice girl. Yeah. I mean, you wouldn't necessarily know Katie does some pretty heroic deeds on film. You know, like you wouldn't know. I mean, she seems like a person who reads hastily written messages half absent-mindedly and gets most of the words right. That's right. Basically it. Yeah. What more do you want from a cameo?
Pro tip. You can always say, as this next slide shows, that it is just lemon medium stains, because if you're watching the video version of this, that is how lemon medium dries in jeans. It kind of
was he like painting Votan models?
I was saving that slide for a Votan joke, but now we're going to use it for Katie Morgan there. Guys,
I was doing some static grassing.
Yeah.
I'm going to step right on your bit. I apologize. I don't.
No, you're good. You're good. My bit can restart. It's scripted.
Excellent. I was doing some static grass rebasing of some square bases over there. And I've created a mixture of Elmer's glue or like white glue and water to use. And and literally this afternoon was like, oh shit, it's not coming out. I squeezed it. And it jizzed all over the place, and I laughed heartily at the glue jizz that I sprayed all over my desk.
Yeah,
glue.
Right.
If this is the brave new world we face, then we here at Grim After Dark, we're gonna go all in on this amazing new technology, with something like this.
This pizza guy.
All right.
Io Luigi Primo, and I make a best pizza. Reese, I need to demand that you go to the Las Vegas Open and join the commentary team. Your friends, Peter the Falcon, Rob from Honest Wargamer, and Adam Camilleri are planning and counting on you being there. Whatever you got to plan, you got to drop it, and you got to talk about the forces of chaos incurring on the Space Marines and how the Tyranids are going to take over the Arcanon cluster and whatever other things you're going to talk about. Because they need you to call the action down the line. They're going to be rolling a handful after a handful of a D6, and only you, Reese, are the one who can talk about it. They're going to be throwing those D6s on the table like it's a pepperoni on a pizza. And believe me, I know about a pepperoni on the pizza because I'm a Luigi Primo, and I make the best over that. So, Reese, your friends are counting on you. We need you to join the commentary team so that you can help make a good pizza in the tactical wargaming experience a commentary. I'm a Luigi.
Okay.
All right.
Couple things there.
Yeah.
So that by the way was Luigi Primo. He's an Italian pizza chef themed professional wrestler who I paid to send a message to Reese that the world is demanding. The commentary team for LVO is Rob from the Honest Wargamer, Peter the Shifty Falcon, and Adam Camilleri.
I
for the
also
Las Vegas
just
Open.
for the I want to say for the record, it is wonderful to see Adam Camilleri's name get absolutely mangled like that, because there's no one who can mispronounce the name quite like Adam Camilleri, or any word that's vaguely not like English. Just gets completely mangled by Adam every single time. So that was beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Sadly, something got lost in translation. He pushed for a 4-man commentary booth with Reese, which, no thank you. Just throw there. Guys, I'm going to throw this out. Val, you're the creative type. Danny, you two. What are your thoughts on this video here?
That was great. I mean, first of all, a little inside baseball. I was well aware that he actually had to re-record that because his first attempt cut off his entire head from the frame, if I'm not mistaken. So that just gives you the idea of the dedication of the craft that this gentleman has, which I appreciate, because again, he tried hard. He also had someone filming him do that, so it could be a full body cameo. If you didn't see the footage, you should. The man put a lot of effort in. He was wearing his pizza apron, and he had quite the delightful Italiano mustache. So I gotta say, it was fantastic.
You know,
hey guys, this video will be going up. Danny's video up to you. I'll be putting that up on the Frontline Gaming community Facebook page, with a disclaimer that no, I do not. Reese, I love you. I do not want you on that commentary team. Very clearly wanted that 3-man booth. But who am I to argue with a very respectful stereotype? Danny, you were going to say.
Stop stealing. First of all, like, just because I steal your thunder one time this episode, you've got to steal mine by saying that guy is racist as shit.
I actually said he was very respectful. I've learned to not say mean things about people.
I have not. So he also like
It's fair.
He also totally wasted an entire pizza dough. He throws it in the alley off to the side of him, like after like the first 5 seconds of him tossing it in the air.
I like that. Yeah.
Like, I hope his sunk costs in these videos aren't too much if he's using an entire pizza dough every single time he films one of these. Like, it seems like you might not need to charge for that. Like, maybe reuse it once or twice.
It's 10 or 20 cents down the drain.
Yeah.
Easy. Have we considered that there's him here? There's a person filming him here.
Right.
And then there's a person off to the side whose sole job it is to catch the dough.
Oh,
so
maybe.
It can be reused for the next cameo.
Well, then his overhead costs, he's really got to think of that then. I mean, I think that's a lot of employees for a $30 video.
Guys, if you want Luigi Primo to do a cameo for you, $30. It was a very nice gentleman as well. Let me know he's going to be late with it, because this is no joke. He was on a national television last Wednesday night with the same
What nation?
What's that?
What nation?
The United States. In fact, he was also in Canada in some networks.
Amazing.
So we have the United States. He was on TBS, and I'm sure Canada. I forget the network they're on in Canada, but they're there too. But he was a part of All Elite Wrestling last Wednesday night, which was
that Billy Corgan's wrestling outfit?
No, that's the National Wrestling Alliance.
Oh, I'm mistaken.
This is Tony Khan's. Tony Khan, the owner of the Jags,
the Jaguars. Yes, 100%.
The Jaguars,
yeah.
And also Fulham. Yeah, he has his own wrestling league now. Guys, this is not Grim After Wrestling.
That's the job that Tony Khan gave his coked out son to do instead of run the Jaguars. So fantastic. Well, it's clear that his talent scouting is
company.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's good. Here's a question, though. We talked about commentary. 4-man booth seems unwieldy, right, Val? How would you set up that booth for a 4-man? What kind of instructions would you give Reese, Pete, Adam, and Rob?
Well, I'm going to go super deep cut here, and I say we just get Dennis Miller to round out that four-man booth. I mean, he did it once on Monday Night Football, and I'm sure his obtuse, weird humor would play very well to the Warhammer 40,000 crowd. And I bet you he's probably an affordable cameo get himself.
That's fair. And we'll definitely look that up because this is a well that's a real deep. Joel Adkins, disappointing us all in chat by saying that he's just a dough catcher, kind of like Katie. If you were a professional wrestler, Val, Danny, what would your horrifically, stereotypically offensive gimmick be?
Mine would be cultural appropriation.
I mean, that's
so you just be whatever your opponent is.
Exactly.
I would probably go with GW Rules Writer because I tend to use that quite a bit, as a character and a characterization. So yeah, GW Rules Writer.
That's fair. I guess we're going to move on to our main topic tonight, which we'll talk about for a little bit here before we head off and leave everyone here. Tournament streaming. That's kind of where it kind of came from. The London GT was this week. As we in America look excitedly onto what we can expect to see in 6 months at the Las Vegas Open from the European meta, it wasn't really streamed. The last couple of rounds were streamed, and the organizer stated to thunderous downvotes on Reddit that he's going to allow himself to quote Tom Adreni, which I'm going to butcher his name like a Camilleri, organizer of the World Team Championships, that is perfectly understandable. TOs cater primarily to their attendees, as it should be. A proper stream costs a lot of resources to manage, a lot of pre-event planning, and isn't cheap in terms of what you get in return for setting it up. Except to cater to the needs of those who feel entitled at home. That's what's unacceptable, really. The sense of entitlement some people have that have zero notion of the amounts of time, effort, and planning that goes into these events that span multiple systems. If you feel there should be a stream, get involved, make it happen, reach out. Ask how you can help. Go to London and set one up. Try to be a positive force that brings change and tries to make a situation better rather than posting things like the ones above. Don't be a negative Nancy. God, that's our gig though. Hats off to Zach and his crew for putting on an event of this scale. I'm sure they tried their best to get a stream going, but couldn't make it happen this year for the span of the entire event. Better luck next time, hopefully. Now, who better to ask about streaming than the man who even admitted earlier in this episode, and what someone could say would be like a setup, that he spent 10 weeks on the road last year to stream Warhammer. Val, tell me what you're thinking about this comment here.
So the thing that bothers me the most about this is perhaps the idea that people who want to watch your event from home are entitled. That is a sign, folks, that your event has reached a level of cultural significance that people who are not there would like to know what's going on. And I would also point out that when people who are not there want to know what's going on, that is a sign that you are doing something that's worth more than what people are willing to pay to just show up and be there. And that is, I think, the element of TO-ness that is perhaps one of the hardest things to break through, is that you can only scale events to a certain... There is a cap to both the usefulness and the actual gross size that a Warhammer event can be. After that point, how else are you going to start making more of it? And the way you make more of it is by learning how, supporting, and paying for talented individuals to come and broadcast your event to a wider audience. And I'm just gonna keep giving away some free advice here. When you do that, say you have other events that run throughout the year that may or may not be selling out. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. But you can use those streams to raise the cachet of your other events and to raise the profile of the game overall. And if people are demanding to watch, it does not mean that they're entitled. It means that they want to watch what the fuck is happening. So this is not something to be derided. This is something to be responded to by supporting the many people out there who have developed the skills, talent, and technology to go out and tell the story of 40K games. And so, yeah, I think tournament organizers, hopefully at some point, and I don't know who will be the first one to answer this call, but there was an attempt a while back to build the stream first and then the event. And ultimately, I think that is where things need to go for competitive 40K, tournament 40K, to start growing into some big boy leagues.
Yeah, for sure. Danny, how did your view of LGT this year, how was that affected by the fact that there wasn't great coverage of it? I know Zach, the organizer, did some interviews on Facebook Live, sort of like Val does on FLGN with events, like in between rounds. Was the fact that you couldn't see the earlier games like a big deal to you?
Yeah, I have no buy-in to anything, right? So like, why do I want to pay attention to the absolute finale? I want to hear about the story on the way to the championship. I think that's what anybody wants, really, for any kind of large sporting event like that. And so, like, if I don't know what the quest for the cup is, why do I want to turn in and see the end? Like, it's like opening a book and turning to the end and reading the last paragraph to see what happened.
Yeah, for sure. And more off of what Val said there, Danny, are you more inclined to go to events that you've seen sort of before from afar, especially where you're investing in cross-continental travel?
100%. I mean, I don't really have a huge interest to go to LGT, but like otherwise, yeah, I would lots of events that I hear about. I would definitely want to go. I would definitely want to go partially because you see the tables, you see the people playing there. It looks like a good time. You hear the stories from your friends, but like most importantly, you hear kind of how the event went, and if it was run well, like, and the train was good, then that's a place you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of the times. I think a lot of the times when, and this is not pointed at the organizers of LGT, but I have seen it in that particular context. And in others like Adepticon, where streams are viewed as a risk or a liability because of things that may or may not get captured on camera. And I think what a stream actually does is it either makes you accept the risk of running a loose tournament and having bad things happen on your stream, or it forces you as an organizer to raise your game and to do the things that you need to do to protect players from shitheads who try to do things to take advantage on a tabletop, whether or not it's streamed or not. So I think in a lot of cases, stream skepticism has a lot to do with not wanting to broadcast bad player experiences, which is kind of a funny thing because I don't know, the show is if the 40K LGT GT was not streamed, did it even happen? Well, the same concept applies. Like, if you don't capture on camera something bad happening, did it happen? The answer is yes, it did. Maybe it wouldn't be broadcast and be as explicit to people out there, but like, that's no way to improve the quality of your event just by not having it recorded.
Yeah, because all we're hearing, so we are hearing some stuff coming out of LGT with Mikey from Hellstorm Wargaming streaming today about some issues he had during the weekend. I know Manny Chima from Glasshammer kind of put out some issues that he had. And do you feel, Danny, that there's more legitimacy to an event if there has that kind of like visual record that's kept rather than it being almost hidden like this here, like the post suggests?
It's pretty hard to have total legitimacy without some kind of transparency.
Yeah, so, for sure.
I would say too that like that streaming, like if you look at stuff that like the Honest Wargamer does, like his default stream setup is 8 tables. So that's like, and each one has its own stream PC attached to it, top-down camera, dice camera. So that's 8 tables, your top 16 that has a record of what happened at that table.
Right.
So I mean, and there's no reason also why we couldn't be in a world where each one of those tables could have a judge watching remotely in their underwear or otherwise, and making sure that the game was played above board. So much has been made about the fact that there's just no way that we could ever possibly have, like they do in a lot of TCGs, a ref at each table. Whereas in fact, yes, we could. If we had a centralized pool of refs or people willing to watch games, and they exist, for probably a nominal amount of money, you could have someone watching those games and making sure that everything's above board. So streaming provides us a way to legitimize 40K, tournament 40K, and answer a lot of the main criticisms, I think, that exists against why, tournament 40K can't be taken seriously. So yeah.
Val, you've been in streaming. You've been in streaming for 40K, so it's pretty much like the start of kind of the increase, and you've been a big proponent of increased streaming, and obviously your work with the network here has increased that even further. How have you seen streaming grow and change over the years from when you started to kind of where we are now, where you're kind of ramping up for LVO 2023?
I mean, just first of all, that entitlement, right? The expectation that there is a stream for any event that's worth having. There should be a stream, and it should be one that is accessible and easy to find. It's not a luxury item or something that should happen. The fact that WTC this year, yes, they had the French channel was there broadcasting the French games, but the fact that there was no central English language stream there supported and brought forward by the WTC as a core part of the offer is, to me, kind of a bit backwards, a lot backwards, actually. These are supposed to be the marquee events that exist in our world, and a marquee event means that it's not just about the people who show up. If you're offended by the fact that people want to take part and enjoy an event as it's going on, then friggin' find a way to charge them to watch. That's also something super possible. Find a way to monetize it. Find a way to make the business model work. But I think that the value of
$5 and you got to watch the stream.
Yeah, totally. That's reasonable.
I would pay $5 to watch LGT.
And even if you don't feel like you want to make money off of it, then just donate the money that you get from the stream anyway, and you'll get even more people to like donate into the stream to watch a tournament. Like, come on, like there's so many different options that you have here to increase viewership. Like, and this is not the way to gatekeep the community out of like seeing some really high quality games.
Yeah, and it's tough to say. I don't know who this was actually from the LGT. Wow, that's funny. So yeah, I think it's maybe defending a situation where they probably wish they had a stream. I think I don't know the exact reason behind it. I can take some guesses, but they didn't have someone capable of doing that stream on all of the days, or they didn't want to have somebody there doing the stream on all the days. I don't know which. But I think it needs to be a priority, and hopefully this thread makes that come through pretty clear that actually this is not a matter of entitlement. This is a sign that we're doing something that is relevant and people want to be able to participate no matter where they are in the world.
And I think what's important to see here, guys, is like at this point, streaming is almost like an advertising cost. It's just the cost of doing business for your giant event to kind of legitimize what you're doing. I know one of the reasons I wanted to go to LVO, and the reason that that's one of the few big tournaments I pay to fly out of my state to go to, is because I saw the streams. I saw the set. You can see the scale of it. I understand the idea of wanting to keep your event like unique and keep your event kind of exclusive, and if you want the full experience, you got to come, but you got to show what I'm missing. Right. Otherwise I don't know what I'm missing there. Danny,
I think a lot of this too extends from a concept that I hope, if there's something that has evolved over time, it's this idea that like, who even wants to watch a stream? Who cares? Like, if we don't have a stream, so what? So like a couple people don't get to watch online. Well, like, if you look at something like, your average FLGN stream of something like the SoCal Open, which is coming up, sure, we'll hit 1,000 or so concurrent viewers, probably on our third day, maybe a little bit over that. GW, similar numbers. Maybe they'll do a bit better than that even on one of their opens. But, those are some of the bigger like stream tournaments that exist. I'm not sure what Wargames Live's doing these days, but I'd imagine he's pushing 1,000 or somewhere around that. 1,000 people viewing from home of something like the SoCal Open, which has a lot of additional capacity to bring in extra players. Well, it's 5 times as many people are actually playing in that tournament. So if we don't think that the tournament itself is waste of time, so just because it only has 200 people playing in it, which in our world is a lot of people, and by the way, that's a lot of people for really any organized tournament,
right?
Then we need to start realizing that 1,000 people watching remotely, that's 1,000 potential tournament goers, likely, and that's 1,000 people watching competitive 40K and realizing that this isn't bullshit. That like people try really hard, they know what they're doing, they're not enormous assholes every time. It does happen, but hey, better to have that in the open than in the dark. You know, so like it is a tremendous opportunity to grow the scene, and especially in a situation now where you have so many very similar, let's say, value propositions, right? Where you have a lot of sort of GT level, major level events in every region, pretty much in all the main Warhammer markets now. There's a lot less reason to travel. So you got to find ways to make your event seem more, you know, interesting, more of a draw than others. And I think streaming is certainly a way to differentiate yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, coming in from chat, we're going to round up this episode here pretty soon. The chat's bringing up the need, and it's been discussed a little before, the need for a pro circuit for 40K. What are your guys' takes on a pro circuit, and do you feel that would be helpful in encouraging kind of like a streaming thing, like, hey, this is a pro circuit tournament, so it's going to be streamed? Danny.
Yeah, so kind of to relate to certain issues with the ITC scoring and things like that, that you could have with a smaller event with like these top level players that may not be intrinsically exciting to them to go to, without some additional incentive. Like the fact that we don't have like US Masters or qualifiers for anything like that is pretty ridiculous in the first place. And you could just bump these off as kind of their own category of event if you wanted to continue on with the same scoring criteria that you have right now, and change the algorithm for that particular kind of event, right? Like that's a good idea. But I don't think you can implement it in the system and like keep the other stuff the way it is all the way, right? So I think that there's a lot of potential here to create something that maybe the common person has to strive for before they're actually able to, like, I say the common person, come on, like a person has to strive for, or actually like,
now Danny's a GT
put up
player,
some
so you gotta
numbers,
listen to him.
right? Yeah, to put up some numbers to actually attend an event like that. I think that would be really good. So some kind of a pro circuit, or masters level events, like even if there's multiple of them, I think would be really good for the game.
Like chat's bringing up the point. Sorry, that you shouldn't divide the player base more. But imagine how much more important RTTs would be if you need to reach a certain score to attend a specific event. And if this RTT, you have to place third or higher so
Sure.
you can go to this thing. Like, I think it adds an extra layer. But Val.
Yeah, there's just no way in hell that you ever see, a developed, pro, or let's just even say, cash tournament, circuit or scene without a developed stream behind it.
Oh yeah.
If like people get their nose out of joint when, a football player, a baseball player, soccer player, whatever, gets paid X amount of millions of dollars. And they don't stop to question the fact that if someone is willing to pay them $1 million to kick a ball around, how much are they making off that deal? And what they're making off of it is the ability to charge people to watch them do that thing really impressively, right? So like if there is a demand, which I think we can prove that exists, with no promotion, with no real budget behind it, with no real effort from an organized perspective to make streams a thing, and there's a demand to watch it, and we're talking thousands, it's not necessarily even tens of thousands at this point, but certainly thousands, and these are rarely advertised. You're gonna have to know where to find these fucking things, pardon my language, but like that to me is all the seeds that you need to be able to start saying, well, maybe we'd be able to find a sponsor for real cash prizes. Maybe we'd be able to develop an audience that's large enough to support putting cash prizes that will help cover some costs for our traveling players.
Yeah,
because we're going to lose them. We're going to lose the best players in this game to other either games or other facets of life, because ultimately, the ITC points are empty calories. They're not helping justify the expense, time, and energy it takes to travel to these things and be good enough to win them. So, at some point we do have to start thinking about how are we going to raise the stakes, to justify the level of competition that we're seeing in 40K now. Because we get real snide about, I think, this game and about how good people are at it. And we also take for granted how hard Warhammer 40,000 is. It is a tremendous game of skill. It is something. It is a wacky amount of effort, and to be very good at this game, and also takes unique skill sets in that individual to be good at this game. So these are things that could easily translate to engaging and interesting broadcasts that would draw people in, because when you start to find out what it takes to play this game, let alone at a high level, I find that that's an interesting hook. And you add to that the like, I mean, there was like a LGT talk show thing that I caught a glimpse of, but just the image of the tables lined out in that arena. For me, one of the things about broadcasting LVO was always like, we got to get a picture of just the mass going on here. How many people are doing this? There's so much that's marketable about playing Warhammer 40,000 at a big tournament, that to say that, you know, a stream isn't worth doing is really nearsighted in my view. And I hope to be able to win this argument in a big way, you know, in the next year or two. And I know that there's guys out there, you know, living, you know, like walking this talk, right? Like Joe from Wargames Live, you know, Rob at the Honest Wargamer and T Sports Network. Those are guys who have dedicated a good chunk of their lives to bringing games to people and are developing big audiences for our world to come and watch those things, to the point where it's becoming an expectation that they're streamed, and they're streamed well. So that's fantastic.
And again, just to round this out here, chat's bringing up some great points. Yeah, invitationals still are a thing. So there is those exclusive events. But then there's the favoritism argument, or you're just doing this for this person. We're talking about like earning your way in. And I'm going to leave this broadcast here with this last thought of using football terms, which I am a pain to do because I don't know anything about it. But if you could imagine the owner of the Buffalo Bills, just to take off of Val's hat here, saying on the internet, broadcasting this game wouldn't be fair to the people who attended it.
Bad example. The NFL actually blacks out the game in their local in their
well, I don't know, but yeah, just that you're not going to grow your sport by hiding it, putting up as being an exclusive thing. But yeah, it's fine. We can finish by screwing up a metaphor. That's how it's going to go. Guys, what an amazing show. We didn't even touch Votan, unlike Games Workshop. But we'll be back next Monday.
I'm just gonna. I almost did a hot take on that, because there's. So I'm gonna speak out, because I don't know the next time I get to talk into a microphone.
Probably next week.
Maybe next week. The backlash against like this idea that GW should not fix its rules when they get it wrong. Actually, I'm gonna leave that. I'm gonna say what I wanted to say when I first saw this, which is that GW nailed the tone, as far as I'm concerned, as to how they needed to address that balanced data slate. In the sense that they came at it from a position of not taking themselves particularly seriously. So they made jokes. They brought out their James Workshop guys, and they were funny about it. But they were also serious in the sense that they knew people would be pissed, and so they legitimately apologized. I've seen a lot of comments along the lines of GW, stop apologizing. I would like someone to point me in the direction of an apology from Games Workshop for anything. I would like to see a situation where Games Workshop took accountability, let alone in a well-produced video that took some forethought and ingenuity to make, but took accountability for screwing something up, because I don't think it's existed. Certainly didn't exist for their app. Certainly hasn't existed at various levels and moments along the way in 9th edition. This was, I think, the right way to handle things, and to see a negative backlash against it. Again, not taking themselves too seriously, but taking the game seriously, because we take the game real seriously.
Yeah,
we do.
So to say that we got it wrong, we're sorry about that, and we're going to do our best to fix it. That's the right way to handle it in my books. And I don't know what this stuff is on the internet that thinks otherwise.
Rather than wrapping this up, I'm going to share my issue with it, because I personally I didn't like the video. I didn't think it was appropriate, because much like, and this is going to be stuff we're referring to on the whiteboard, early Grim After Dark, I wasn't a huge fan of the massive tonal shift in the middle. So we'd spend the first 30 minutes making some jokes, riffing on the community, and then at the halfway mark, bang, serious interview time. And the tonal shift was jarring. The tonal shift was bad. And we have this video where we have some man, I love James Workshop. Some of his lines, I'm only supposed to be alive on Christmas, was tragically funny. I know I've never written a codex. Nope, it's fine. Like, it was all very funny stuff. But then to instantly do that huge tonal shift to Eccles and Troach, to be like, yeah, we're sorry, we screwed up. That made that apology not hit for me. Because like you spent the first 2 minutes making fun of it. And then you're like, yeah, we're sorry. It's like that BP apology all over again.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I've seen non-apology apologies before, and that didn't feel like one. That felt like one where they were trying to be creative in how they deal with this, because it's also, I think it would be tone deaf to come out there with the same music that backed all of the funeral services for QE2 and talk about what a tragedy it is that they screwed up their Votann release. That also is not appropriate. So I think tonally you need to have both. You need to have a tongue-in-cheek, because this is ultimately a game that we shouldn't take ourselves too seriously about, but it is a game that we do take seriously. I think that also is something that, from a broadcaster's perspective, is something that I hope that we can nail, is the good-natured element of the people that play this game, and how much you got to do to be good at it. But on the flip side, just how serious it is and how hard it is to do this. So like with the particular example of Leagues of Votann and them getting it wrong, I think this, like I said before, is exactly the right way to handle it. Danny, I don't know. What do you think? Did it strike you as genuine, or was it? Oh, one last thing. All these people about the bait and switch. I saw the bait and switch stuff in chat. Guys, you can return shit. You can return shit, guys. All these people who are like, well, they sold everything, so now they're just going to nerf it all to hell. You can return it. If you think that suddenly the Votann are no longer worth your money, which, by the way, they weren't worth your money before because it was bullshit, you can just get your money back, guys. Like, I don't know if you realize this is something that modern capitalism has, is the refund and exchange mechanic, that you can present your bill of sale to the retailer and say, actually, I've changed my mind. Give me my money back. Here is your stuff.
Actually, you can't if you've already opened the box and clipped the models out and started building them. So,
yeah, ignorant of the fact that this was coming, because we haven't.
I don't know if okay. To be fair, this has never happened before where we've gotten something like this that's happened before the codex is released. So, in my opinion, I think that this was probably a little bit premature. Like, I think that you need to see data on this stuff before you start making sweeping changes. So I don't like the precedent that this kind of change sets initially. So
Danny, in your opinion, Votann, strong or not strong?
Votann, they're definitely strong, and they need to have fixes. But I think that you need to support those kinds of changes with data and not just make changes.
True or false? Our community is advanced enough at this point that we know when something's completely busted.
False.
You think that's false?
I think that's false.
Okay. What would be an example where the community got, and I'm talking about not just talking about the community at large here. I'm talking about people who perhaps know what they're doing, got something completely wrong.
What do you mean? I mean, you're asking me to build an example out of the air. If we're saying all the other changes that they've made in this respect have happened after we've seen the results of this.
So,
but I don't think that anybody
comes out
as an example.
If we use Drukhari as an example, if we use Drukhari as an example, I would say outlets like The Art of War and probably Glasshammer Gaming and those guys. Well, first of all, they all switched to Drukhari. Second of all, that's probably a canary in the old mine shaft. And second of all, they were probably telling us in explicit detail to all their subscribers exactly why they were so busted and overpowered.
Okay.
I think we all knew about Ruck Track squig buggies or whatever the fuck they were well before they hit the table as to the toxic impact that they were going to have. I think the concept that we can't see this coming, that there's nothing we can do until we have hard data, it feels a little disingenuous.
Okay. I think it's important to collect that. And we're continuing to collect it on codexes that have been fixed that aren't fixed yet. So like what's the point? What's the point on collecting data at all then at that point if we've got it all figured out?
Well, I mean, now we're going to keep collecting data and we'll see how close they got.
So how do you overcorrect them? Because now we've locked this codex in to these point levels for at least this time period. So they're not going to get a fix in a week or 2 weeks whenever the data slate updates. We probably won't get them fixed in 3 months because there won't be enough data So what if they're bad for another 6 months? I think that's a bad idea. I think it's okay to let something be good or too good for a little while before releasing a patch. I think it's important to let stuff release and see what the meta does.
Do you guys feel, just to kind of jump in here with a hypothetical, that we should move to a beta system where stuff is released in a way where, like, hey, these are experimental rules?
I mean,
Yeah,
they didn't do this right with this at all, right? I mean,
no,
like,
that's the thing. So I don't know. I'm not even talking about playtesting, but kind of releasing a rule set to the general public. Like, hey, these are what we're thinking of for these rules. These are not legal for tournament play. These are not legal for IDC. Give them a shot. You think that's something that should be tried on kind of a wider scale?
I mean, they did that with Sisters. They've done that sort of whenever they don't want to commit to something per se. I don't know how valuable that is necessarily. I just think, like, I mean, the last time I knew what was up, or at least felt like I even had a finger on the pulse, would have been something like Iron Hands. Like, and Iron Hands came out, very similar alarm bells were rung. In fact, they were rung months and months in advance. The new Space Marine Codex in the end of 8th edition was widely rumored for a very long time to be, meta breaking, and as a matter of fact, they were. And
sure,
and
it's
were
weird. We didn't even find the most powerful build until 4 months in.
Well, that was after a lot of the far more powerful builds were deleted from being able to be done.
I don't even think that's true. None of the things that were nerfed in none of the things that were nerfed in the Broviathan build were things that were changed at all. So
that's correct. But options that were ridiculous were removed from existence. So I think that's probably what allowed for some ingenuity on the layers of busted shit that was in that book. But we don't have to argue this. All I'm saying is, like, we knew it was busted, and we predicted that it was going to be completely dominant.
But you didn't know
it
how.
Had to happen for months.
But you didn't know how. That's the problem. Like, the Broviathan build was better than anything that would have been released. That was any build that was released until then. Like, the combinations of, like, wound, ignoring, and layering was insane. It's so much better than even it was before. Like, the half damage minus 1 damage dreadnought is like nothing compared to having to layer it through, like, 2 sets of invulnerable saves plus feel no pain.
Sure.
Two things here I want to throw out just to round this up here. One, chat on fire again. Irritably perplexed Danny is best Danny is something I can very much get behind. And 2, let's just burn it down. Let's start again. Like, codexes,
probably
gone.
will.
The Falcon
game
approach.
Gone. Let's just start again. You get an index, and there'll be 2 indexes. Chaos and Imperium. The rest will be 2025.
I can't wait.
Danny, the reason why I'm goading you is because I believe in the best players.
Okay.
And I think that, I consider your opinions to be amongst uninformed players' opinion. Wow. And that I think that there's no reason why we have to have low self-esteem about this. And we can see bad outcomes coming. We can do something to avert those bad outcomes. Maybe we don't get them all. And I agree with you. We won't necessarily get them all. But Broviathan, was something that dominated a tournament, and then some before the pandemic hit. But they were able to take the edge off of other builds, and to the point where that Iron Hands weren't the only thing being played at LVO that year. There were other options, even though ultimately Broviathan was determined to be obviously very, very good. And so that's all I'm saying is I don't think we need to say that, we can't tell when something is going to be particularly destructive.
I mean, look, I'm not saying you can't tell. Like, we all know that changes need to happen, but I think that we need to compile data about what changes need to occur. Like, we can see obviously some stuff right off the bat is broken, but I don't know. I just don't like knee-jerk stuff, and I think it provides, like, a really poor precedent for people to make changes based on bitching. And this isn't necessarily just from top minds. I mean, top minds tell everybody what to think, and the group think is crazy sometimes with what's good and what's not.
Yeah.
The Art of War groupies are a powerful force.
But they're not the only ones. I mean, they're not the only guys who know how to play this game, right? Like,
you're right.
And I'm just saying, there's lots of people who have a pretty good, strong, informed opinions, and we could, when something's giga messed up, like perhaps this particular one was, I think the right call is to do something out of the gates. And you know what? I'm going hard with you because I think this conversation we're having right now, Danny, is still, I think, a common sort of cleave in this community about how to handle busted stuff.
Yeah.
Because playing to win, the ebook that shaped a lot of my views on a lot of the stuff would say exactly what you're saying, Danny. You don't touch it. You let people figure it out. And if everyone chooses Chun-Li, everyone chooses Chun-Li.
Then there's a even bigger problem than we thought before, than there was before. I feel like I don't know, but like, yeah. And maybe that's what this codex was, right? Like I'm not saying that it's not better than like Iron Hands or something like that. It's very possibly that's the case. But I'm always going to choose the more conservative approach if I can.
What we need is something in between Iron Hands and Votan, a middle ground, if you were. And what you can't see, if you're listening to the podcast is Danny has slowly placed 3 grudge tokens on Val throughout. Guys, what an amazing show. We'll be back next Monday. Val will probably be back next Monday. I'm getting pretty lazy in my old age. We're going to go over something probably interesting. There's a lot to go on. This is a busy couple of weeks. We'll hit the highest heights in community, the lowest lows. Maybe there'll be another Patreon. Oh, not another Patreon. Cameo. That's what we were doing. I'm here. Maybe there'll be another Cameo. Who knows? But thanks, everyone, for watching. And as always, it's pretty grim after dark.